Hello again, sixth grade health. 86 to 90 is what we're going to do today, 86 to 90. And you remember we talked about on Wednesday, um, we talked about the immune system and the immunity that your body gives. The first line of defense and part of your immune system to a certain extent is your integumentary system, which is your skin. And then this is also part of your immune system. This is the lymphatic system. And I guess I was thinking that we'd already talked about this, but I think that was in seventh grade that we just talked about the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is amazing. And it's what continually is cleaning our cells, continually cleaning our cells. So our cells are surrounded by tissue fluid. And that's just basically one of the reasons that we need to drink lots and lots of water is because our body's made up of over 70% water. And so this is part of that water, the tissue fluid that surrounds every cell. So when the tissue fluid cleans the cell, it gets rid of whatever it needs to out of there. It brings it out into the tissue fluid, and that now it's called lymph. All right, once it's cleaned and it's kind of dirty, if you want to call it that, it starts to move into the lymph capillaries. Right, so the lymph capillaries, then the lymph vessels. So the capillaries are smaller than vessels, so it kind of extracts that dirty tissue fluid, or lymph is what we're going to call it now. It's first tissue fluid, then it's lymph. All right, so then now it's lymph and it goes into your lymph capillaries, and then it goes into your lymph vessels. Eventually, it will get over to your lymph nodes. All right, so when you go to the doctor and the doctor feels back here, they might feel around like this. Sometimes there's some under your arms. They're all over the place. You can see them on page 87, all the places that the lymph nodes are. Those are those like enlarged little knots all through the lymphatic system that they're showing you there. And so those lymph nodes are just in large bunches of lymph vessels. And when they get there, it cleans that lymph. And then it returns the tissue fluid back to the body. And so it can start the whole process over again. And you know how normally, like for our cardiovascular or circulatory system, it has a pump. Your heart is the pump for that. So it continually is moving. But your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It relies solely on your muscle movements. So that's one of the reasons, of course, you want rest when you're ill, but you also want to be able to get up and move around to a certain extent as well, because you're moving your lymphatic system. You're moving that lymph through your body. And it's basically just it just moves with your muscle movement. That's how it does that. And then traveling through the lymph vessels to each lymph node, there's large numbers of white blood cells. We call white blood cells lymphocytes. All right, CYTE, that means cell. All right, we've talked about that, I think, before. If not, we're going to. CYTE means cell, and lymphocytes, it just means white blood cells, right? And so the primary purpose of the lymphocytes is just to destroy pathogens. Remember, we talked about Wednesday, what are pathogens? Viruses and bacteria would be considered some types of pathogens that we've talked about. All right, so let's talk about some of the specialized parts of our lymphatic system. You can see a lymph node on the top of page 88. It's just basically the structure and how it has arteries and veins into it, so it can clean. And then you can also return the tissue fluid back to where it needs to go. You see where the lymph is coming in, and then you can has the valve. It's just like our blood valves. It kind of goes like this. So one goes this way, and it doesn't let it come back in the other way. So I think I mentioned it on Wednesday. Your spleen is your largest lymphatic organ. All right, remember what's your largest organ of your body? It's your skin. And then your largest organ in your body is your liver. And then your largest lymphatic organ is the spleen. Hopefully you got all those. And it's about the size of your fist, located behind your stomach. So then your stomach muscles, as they move, helps to move things along in your spleen as well. When you breathe, your diaphragm is providing that squeezing action on the spleen to help it move around there. The main job of the spleen is to clean the blood. Clean the blood as it passes through there. Dead cells, microbes, um, anything that we don't need in our body. It's going to clean it and then dispose of it as well. Filtering there. Some of you, have you ever had tonsillitis, or maybe your tonsils look swollen or something like that? Well, your tonsils and your adenoids, those are accumulations of lymph nodes, so lots of lymph nodes in the back of your throat. And when a pathogen enters your body, sometimes it will get caught by your tonsils or your adenoids, and that helps to continually remove the pathogens that are coming in first thing before they even get to your stomach. So um, sometimes they become infected, right? They become so infected that basically they're not needed anymore. They cause more problems than what they're helping because of all the pathogens or maybe strep throat or something like that. And so when that happens, then they have to be taken out. So some of you probably don't have your tonsils or adenoids. And my kids, they never had strep throat, but they had tonsillitis. And in first grade, both of them had to have their tonsils out because they were just running fevers, just a week-long fever. And then 2 or 3 weeks would go by, and then they would run another week-long fever. And first grade was rough on Braden. I remember just like him having blood work, he passed out, and all the stuff. And then finally we go and they're like, his tonsils are infected and they're not getting any better, so we just need to take him out. Hardly run a fever since. And so then when Brooke had that same thing happen, we could catch it a little more quickly because we knew this is what's going on with her as well. But anyway, so sometimes they're a big help, but then at some point they may not be. I still have my tonsils and adenoids. Then you have a lower part of your small intestine. Now, you remember food goes into your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, then it goes into your small intestine, whereas that's where most of your absorption of all your nutrients takes place. That's also where most of your digestion takes place. And so it needs to be able to capture anything that has escaped the hydrochloric acid. And so it has a special group of lymph nodes on it. It's called Peyer's patches. And so it's constantly monitoring your digestive system to get rid of those pathogens there. Then you have at the base of your neck, it's another important lymphatic organ. It's called your thymus. It's kind of located back here behind your breastbone, kind of a butterfly shape there. And this is actually where immature white blood cells or lymphocytes are manufactured and allowed to kind of become mature. I guess they're trained, if you want to say it that way. Um, and then they're allowed to enter your bloodstream whenever they're ready. And so that's really important, that thymus there, the major role in the immune system. Your thymus is definitely working overtime most days there. All right. And then you have something called antibodies. Page 89, you'll see that. Antibodies. Antibodies are little proteins produced by certain types of white blood cells. And they help to battle against those microorganisms, microbes, pathogens, whatever you want to call them. And these antibodies are there to destroy specific pathogens, kind of like the warfare going on continually in your body. And sometimes your body will overreact to a certain substance, and that's basically called an allergy. So if dust comes into my body and I'm allergic to dust and dust mites and that kind of thing. So if it comes in, my body kind of overreacts to it and causes it to have like a lot of mucus and a lot of sneezing and snorting and all that. And so I take what they call an antihistamine. All right. So these antibodies are producing histamines and they're causing it to go over crazy. And so I take an antihistamine, which causes that histamine to calm down and allow me to be around dust. which, everybody's around dust. All the things I'm allergic to, you can't get rid of, dust and grass. You really can't get rid of those. So I take a lot of allergy medicine. Um, and then but antibodies your body can make as well. And if you get, let's say, the flu, let's say flu A this year, then you come in, you've had it, you're over it, and let's say your friend gets it, and you have built up with an immunity to that flu A because you've already had it. So your white blood cells and your invaders, they come in, they mark those specific um, pathogens. They make the antibodies that your body needs in order to fight off that pathogen. And they fight it off. It's a virus, basically, and it goes through your body and you go on. So then when your friend comes in and she has it, your antibodies are already there. They don't have to be manufactured. They're already there. So that same pathogen comes in and they're like, get it out. And so you don't have, that's why you don't usually get a virus to like the same type of virus. Now, sometimes you've got flu A, flu B, all different strains of the flu, all different strains of the cold, all of that. So sometimes you think you get something twice, but like a stomach bug, if it's the same strain, you get it, your body's developed these antibodies, and now your friend who, you know, sneezes or something on you, and then your body's already ready for with that immunity, with those antibodies to kick in. All right, so we're to page 90, and look on page 90, that little yellow box. Make sure you do read that. Those are vaccines, vaccinations. Those are basically, most of the time, they're different. Different ones are different. Different ones are different. Anyway, vaccinations, basically, they're introducing a small part, like for a flu shot. A vaccination is a shot. And so for the flu shot, they will introduce just a little bit of that particular strain of the flu that they think is going to be there that year. And then your body will be able to develop an immunity or those antibodies for that particular disease. Um, so there's you usually get a lot of these types of shots when you're young. Some of them are maybe not necessary. I had chickenpox when I was little, and it didn't kill me. But like my kids, they happen to have the chickenpox vaccinations back then. But now there's some, um, oh, what's the word? Some people don't like the vaccinations, but that's something that you just have to really, as you get older, you have to really do the research. That's important. Don't make up your mind on stuff until you do research and learn what each one of those can do and how they can help. So we don't have pandemics and epidemics and that kind of thing. Obviously, we didn't have a vaccination for the coronavirus yet. So we will see how that goes in the future. All right, so you guys have oh, you see now, I think that's interesting. And on page 90, the yellow, an epidemic is a widespread occurrence of a particular disease, a widespread occurrence. So if we had an epidemic in the United States, or even on the East Coast with a certain thing. That's what we call an epidemic. But a pandemic, which isn't in the book, but you should know this, is worldwide, and that's what we're experiencing right now is a pandemic, and because it pans the globe, that's how you can remember that. So this will be in the history book someday, and you'll be able to say, yeah, I remember that time. I remember sitting there listening to Mrs. Daniels on, you know, telling her, hoping that she would be quiet on those YouTube videos, and I had to have school at home and all that. So anyway, hope you have a good weekend, and I will see you next time.